Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin in my spiritual community. Let it be in my family. Let me be the one who leads the charge. Let me be the voice who leads the charge, and quit waiting around for somebody else to do it. It's easy to say, isn't it? Let there be peace on earth. But the mindset is somebody else do it. Somebody else take the lead role. Well, here, this is the last Sunday in Black History Month here at Unity North. And we decided we wanted to take a lead role in what's up in the field, what has been buried and disguised and hidden and pushed aside. But we want to take the lead role because we want there to be peace among the religions. One of the things that we do here, we want there to be peace among the races. And we still have work to do. Yes? Say that with me. We still have work to do. And it begins at home. And the worst thing that can happen with what we've done over the past month, talking about Black history, is to have it be a blip on the radar, and then we go back to doing business as usual. And so I'm going to say some things today, and I've invited 3 people that are going to join me today on the platform to also say some things that maybe ground some of the principles and ideas that we've been talking about for the month to spur us into action. And not just be, well, that was wonderful, a little bit of maybe education, a little bit of divine ideas, and then we go about our business, and then next month is Women's History Month, and we forget about what we've done here. I want to build on what we have done. I like to look at life as this great ladder. I use this analogy that all of us are on a ladder. We're all on the same ladder, and when we were born into this field existence, we ended up on a rung on that ladder. And many of us received many blessings. The family we were brought into, the system that we were brought into was designed in our favor. And then we're on a journey, on a ladder to get back to what? To peace, to get back to harmony, to get back to unity, to get back to compassion, to get back to a celebration of the diversity and the unity all as one. And when we're born onto the planet, the cards that we have been dealt, that I have been dealt as a white male, I was given some opportunity, privilege, if you will. The world was set up in my favor. The systems and the institutions were set up in my favor. I didn't earn them. I'm not better than anybody else, but I was just given a good hand, and today I recognize that. Some people did not get the same blessings that I got. Some people didn't have the same opportunities that I have had. Now on this ladder, it'd be really easy to contextualize, the better than and less than. That's not what we do here. It's equality. It's an equal playing field. So Danielle said first service, that take that ladder and put it on its side like this. But the reality is we as a culture, as a human race, have inherited things that put us on one rung on that journey back home to God, to heaven, back to harmony, back to peace. Yes? And it's not that anybody is wrong or bad in this, but I'm just going to go ahead and own that I had several notches that I was afforded because I was born into a white family. Plain and simple. I was given a head start of opportunity simply because I was male, simply because I was white. And of an upper socioeconomic, my father made good money. So I was given a set of hands. So it was a little easier for me to spend ideas with the oneness. And everything's going to be great and wonderful, and because I was at a higher vantage point. Not better than or less than. I have many friends that were not given that same kind of opportunity. We're not given that same kind of institutionalized privilege. Systems where they didn't have the same opportunities I had. So we're all making our way home. Life experiences put us on the same ladder called life, yes? We're all on the same ladder, and we're all working to evolve. It's what we do here. Challenge our minds, our spirits, to go to a higher level, to return to God, or to simply go on the parallel. And that's wonderful. But if it's the only thing we do, we become selfish beings. We become blind beings. We become ignorant beings if we're only putting our hand up to be helped to the higher consciousness. You've heard me say a number of times in this community that service is the highest form of knowing God. Yeah, come to church, enjoy the music, enjoy the talk, but it's not the highest form of knowing God. It is serving. And so the job that needs to happen, and the only way we're going to make it individually or collectively, is to put my hand down and help somebody who didn't have the same opportunities I had. Just because of the color of their skin. Just because of the family or the country they were born into. My job as a spiritual being, a teacher and a proponent of oneness, is to simply go, we're all one. And to create a beautiful chain of all of us walking home. Ram Dass said it. We're all just walking each other home. Say that with me. We're all just walking each other home. Some of us have been given greater blessings than others, but our job is to find the strength, to find the will, the determination, the courage, and the willingness to put my hands both ways. Not because anybody is a victim, not because anybody is less than, but because you are my brother and my sister as much as the people that are above me. I stand today in my life with the opportunities of people who were born into better circumstances than me that said, I want to help. So I want to pay it forward in this great chain of oneness of God essence. Last week we talked about listening. Remember? I hope you were here. I hope you were listening. Listening is an absolute first step. It is necessary to listen to the experience of somebody else. To put my ears on and close my mouth and say, let me listen, not only with my ears, but with my heart. But it's a wonderful first step, isn't it? But it's only a first step. If all you ever do is listen and nothing ever changes, guess what? Nothing ever changes. Last week I shared a time in my ministry as I tried to figure out how to be a minister, how to do this, to address the racial divide and the tension and the inequality that existed in our country, on our planet, even in my own family, without offending anybody. I tried, I danced, I did a little dance up here, and I tried to wiggle around a very difficult subject with just listening. Yes, I heard the people who were saying, you know, you might want to pay attention that you've gotten a head start on me. Jennifer White, she's in here today. It's good to see. Praise God you were in here, sweetheart. She told me, she said, you're asking me to run a race and you've got a 20-mile head start. I will catch up, but you know, I want to run back a few steps, go back in the race a few miles and say, let's finish that together, Jennifer. It's you and I make it across the finish line together. And it made me think, start to pay attention to the head start that I have, to the higher vibration of opportunity and blessings that systematically were in my favor, the institutions that were in my favor. And I tried to talk about these things and acknowledge those people like Jennifer, whose experiences have been different than mine. And I tried to do it very cautiously, because I was new at the job. How do I handle this? Very, very cautiously, very gingerly, as to not offend anyone. Not very effective. I'll be honest, not very effective. I was dabbling at the surface of a problem that had a root that needed to be pulled up at the root. In essence, I was not affecting any real change in the world, let alone in my church or in my own heart. It felt good. It felt really good. But we are not the church that just feels good. If you're here to just feel good and not work your system internally and externally, you're not going to last very long. We challenge each other to grow. We challenge environments to grow. Ours is to reach down, and I want to be real clear, this is not reaching down to somebody less than. It's somebody who hasn't had the same circumstances I have. To reach down, step down a rung or two, not just reach down, but meet them. You know, there are a lot of people in New Thought that are talking these high ideals, and I've been involved in a dialogue about decolonizing New Thought. You know, New Thought, unity, and religious science was all created by wealthy white men of privilege. And we say, as New Thought ministers, we're looking down at somebody who is having a health challenge or having a financial problem. I know it's not good down there. You need to use your mind. Dig yourself out of the hole. You know, your mind created it. Oh my gosh. Your mind created it, but your mind can create a different experience. And so we're listening to the people. I hear your story down there. How's it going? It's not so good, is it? Wow, sucks to be you. Okay, then I go about my business and nothing ever changes. To meet people where they are, it takes a great deal of guts, vulnerability, humility, and just plain honesty. And then, when we can get that honest, we have a much longer lasting effect. If we are truly to bring about the necessary societal changes, we cannot do it without offending somebody. Amen. I've gotten, part of my ministry, the number one lesson I've gotten standing up here is get okay with offending people. Because no matter how much you dance and how much you tiptoe around it, somebody's going to be offended, so you might as well just say what you need to say. If any of us is challenging the status quo, somebody's going to be upset. Have you noticed that? As you make your way down the ladder to help somebody, a brother, a sister in need, you're going to step on somebody's toes. The upset is going to happen, and it will usually involve this question: what about me? And there's the colonization of new thought. We can turn the monitor off, Michael, because it's kind of loud in my ear. Maybe he's trying to drive me away from my notes. Come over here and get away from your notes. The decolonization of new thought, which has put a consciousness in there, it's all about me. It's all about me. And what happens, and I shared this story first service last week. Here's an analogy I heard one point that really spoke to me. I'm in a neighborhood with Hispanic and Black and Asian families and the white family, the Burdicks there, and the white family next door, and a house goes on fire. The Black family's house is on fire. And the fire department comes to put the fire out. And then there's the white family sitting there at the front of the cul-de-sac saying, well, what about my house? What about my house? And the fireman will answer what God answers to each and every one of us: sir, your house is not on fire. Your house is not on fire. This is the house that's on fire, so it gets the attention. And I know I'm dancing on thin ice here. Go ahead and applaud if you want to. And there are some people, let's be honest, because we are a very diverse environment going, where's he going with this? It's getting a little uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for me as well. Let's be uncomfortable together and find oneness in our uncomfortableness. Making a difference requires pushing popular opinion a little bit, just a little bit. Black History Month has just been one opportunity to push a little bit, very little bit, to let a different voice be heard. And maybe bring our world and the collective consciousness of our community a little closer to the ideals of oneness that we seek. Before I shut off my ears, let's remember we're a unity church about creating unity. And maybe we need to get off a high horse of our principles and say, brother, sister, I'm here next to you. I'm with you, and let's go up this ladder together. In fact, let's turn the ladder, as Danielle said, from here to a level playing field. So we're walking back and forth on the ladder, returning to oneness as a major collective, as a tapestry, a potpourri of unique ways of God expressing. This is our job. 3 and offense will not be avoided. 3 of the rungs I want to talk about on that ladder are ally, advocate, and activist. 3 that I have had to confront, and I will share a little bit about my experience about confronting my willingness or my fear and lack of willingness to play those roles. I'm going to invite 3 very beautiful people up to the platform right now, people I have the utmost of respect, who can only speak from their experience. I will speak from mine, but then I want to hear from them, which might be a little different than my privileged position. I'd like to invite the intern that's been working with me for almost a year now, Mary Patton, to come forward. Tommy Berry, you've already heard from Tommy Berry singing. Now, she's got a lot more than just singing and talent. Let's bring her up here. And then I mentioned him last week. He's been here longer than probably anybody in the room. And he's been serving, and he's been honest and forthright, and he lets his voice be heard, and that is the man at the front door, Jim Sanford. In a world where injustice persists, where our voices are still silenced and discrimination still rears its ugly head, it is imperative for us to stand together in solidarity and to speak out against oppression anywhere and everywhere, not just black faces, but the LGBTQ community. Anybody who has been marginalized or put off to the side as less than, our job is to walk down into their experience, into their skin, into their life and say, I'm on your side. So that means ally, advocate, and activism. Let me break down from my white male perspective what I mean with these terms. An ally says, I've got your back. I've got your back. You can count on me. I'm doing this all from the mental capacity. My mind says, yes, I'm your friend. I will walk behind you, and I will support you, and I will encourage you from the back. And that's an important thing. This is the place of listening. To an ally means to stand in solidarity with the marginalized individuals or groups. It requires us to listen, to learn, and to amplify the voices of those who are often silenced. As allies, we recognize our own privileges, the head start that we've been given, and our own biases, and use our position, as I'm trying to do here as a minister of a church, to influence and uplift others. The word ally comes from the Latin word alligare, A-L-L-I-G-A-R-E. Take a guess at what it means. Anybody Latin scholars in here? To bind together. So when I am an ally, I am binding myself to your experience. I am binding myself to your heart, to your struggles, to your triumphs, and to you as a beautiful human being, an expression of God. And I provide ongoing help and assistance. An ally says, I see your struggle. I acknowledge the inequality. I'm on your side. Let's go home together. And so I asked these three panelists, there's three of them, so I said only two of them will answer each of the questions until we're done. But what does having an ally mean to you? And how has it affected your life? And maybe share a story of when you had an ally or you served as an ally. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Mary, hold it close.
Okay. I was in high school, and the school had invited 3 white teachers to integrate the staff. And one of those teachers took it upon herself to make sure I got to college. I was one of those at the lower rung. I was on honor roll, but had no money to go to college. Even though my family had land, they didn't have money. So that meant I had no way of thinking about going to college because it was too expensive. So she took it upon herself to make sure that I got to college. What she did was actually take me to the school, and some of you know Berry College here in Georgia. We were in Alabama, so she drove me and another friend to the college. We stayed with the dean, and we toured the campus. Well, she continued. After a while, I didn't get enough scholarship and grants to that I felt was necessary to pay the tuition. And then she was more like an advocate. She wrote a letter, and she got the money increased. Now, this is the love that she showed to me out of her own generosity and heart. And the moral of the story kind of is that I did not attend Berry College. Out from her inspiration and taking up on herself, I was able to go to University of Wisconsin in Madison with a better grant and scholarship. But she gave me that push to move forward.
The world needs allies like that. Not because somebody is a victim, but because we belong to each other. Anybody else want to answer? You're waiting for the next question, right? All right, we'll just go on. So we got the head involved. This is what we're talking about is a head thing. We got to drop down to the heart. That's the journey home. The divine feminine has to be involved. So I become an advocate. Now I'm leading from the heart. I'm not walking behind you anymore. I'm walking beside you as my friend, as my brother and my sister. Advocacy includes speaking out and taking action to address systemic injustices, not privately anymore. No, I'm doing it publicly. It means I'm taking up your banner. Jim Sanford and I take your banner and I'm going to hold it with you. I'm going to hold your cause. I'm going to hold your life with you, and we'll hold it together. It means using my voice not in private anymore, but publicly to raise awareness. publicly holding institutions and individuals accountable for their actions, for their racist actions. Advocacy requires greater courage. I know this firsthand. I tried to tiptoe around, I'm your friend, but no, I don't want to really elicit any change. It requires a great deal of courage. It means I'm an active champion for justice, even when it's inconvenient or when it's unpopular. A real quick story of what this means to me. I had a very, very close friend in this community. I socially did a lot of things with this person. I loved her, she loved me. And she was a volunteer in this church. She used to serve the first service to take care of what we called the unplugged service. And there was Cindy Lou Harrington, God rest her soul, a white female, myself, a white male, and Reverend Averill Maynard, a black female. Everything was fine for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then one day we were running behind schedule, and I turned to this woman and I said, we need water. We're running late. We're getting started with the service, and could you go get some water for us? And I heard from my very loving human friend, I'll get water for her. I'll get water for you. I won't get water for her. That began the end of a friendship, because I knew in that moment I could not let this ignorant, blind remark, a loving person making an ignorant statement, stand. And I said, no, you will not get water for us anymore. I will take care of the two beautiful ladies that I share this platform with, and that's not acceptable in my environment. Those words are not acceptable in my heart, and they will not be acceptable in my church. They went to a different church, and I blessed them. If she were to call today, I would have a friend, but it's a friend where the language has to either shift and change, and the consciousness has to shift and change, or we do not associate with each other anymore. That took a great deal of courage from me to stand for something as a church and as a minister and as a man. I mentioned Larry Rogers, who's in the room. Where is Larry? Where are you, Larry? Clear over there. Larry Rogers is one of the most outspoken people. I want to be Larry Rogers when I grow up. Because he does not make apology for his truth. He doesn't dance around his truth. Now, he uses humor, and he uses it very well, but he will not back up when something is in the environment that is wrong. Plain and simple. And I want to be Larry Rogers when I grow up. I also want to be one of these three people. So my next question for you is, what does it mean to you to have an advocate on your side? And how has it affected your life? And maybe share a story.
I'll take that one.
Are we on? Let's make sure we're on. Yep.
Good morning.
All right.
This looks very different. Usually I'm looking at the back of your head. My story has to do with growing up in what I would call corporate America. Spent something like 30 years with a company. I decided to become a manager, and I found the fit that I thought was good for me. And I had a manager that really wanted me in the job. There was a new product that we were developing a test process for. And in so doing, I had to come up with a budget and the wherewithal for the resources to complete that project. The next step had to do with getting it approved, which meant having to go to headquarters, present it, and get the approval for it. Multi-million dollars, what we were talking about. So naturally, I'm thinking that, okay, I should do it since it was my plan, my budget, identifying all of the resources that were required. And my manager felt the same way, but his manager didn't. Now, I could say that it was because I was new, or was it because of something else? Was it because I'm this black guy going before executives, presenting something that really required a lot of money, a lot of effort, and a lot of time? So my manager went to bat for me. And he told his manager that he is the one to do it. He got out front, making no bones about it. So what happened is that my manager's manager relented and said, okay, but if it falls apart, it's on you. So I went, made the presentation, got the approval, came back and threw the papers on his desk. Okay. Waha. Which says, hey, if you've got people that believe in you and are willing to go with you, then all things are possible. That's my story.
Anybody else? We want to get to juicier questions. All right, I know they're waiting. So we've got the head involved, we've got the heart involved, but eventually we have to put our body behind it. This physical body is a gift, and it is to be used while we walk the earth. And so we continue the journey, and we become an activist. This is where my position gets uncomfortable for me. I'm not walking behind you anymore. I'm not just walking alongside of you, I'm walking in front of you. You know, I'm still grieving from the Super Bowl, so I'll use the Kansas City Chiefs as the example. Patrick Mahomes is an amazing quarterback, and he gets a lot of credit and MVP award, but there are a whole bunch of people in front of Patrick Mahomes that the only reason they won that game is because somebody said, I'm going to put myself in the line of fire. I'm going to handle the bruises so you don't have to. You've been doing it for too long. Patrick, that front line, that offensive line, doesn't ever get their just due. But the praise goes to Patrick Mahomes. This is the place where you get to be the front line for a cause and a banner. Now I'm not only carrying your flag and holding a flag with you, I'm gathering partners and I'm handing out flags. I'm handing out flags for a cause and a purpose far greater than an individual. It is a cause of the spirituality of the human race, of the unity that we teach. I'm actively inserting myself as an agent of change, taking some of the bruises for you and with you. No longer just an outspoken person, but one who is courageously and publicly leading the charge and standing directly in the line of fire. It takes bold and decisive action to challenge the status quo, to bring about tangible progress. It requires a willingness to sacrifice. Yes, to sacrifice. But let's remember the word sacrifice means to make sacred. And so when it comes to my beloved friends of color, I'm willing to sacrifice and put myself here, not just beside you or behind you. No, to put myself here and to actually serve as a shield. And that's holy work. That's because these people are as sacred as I am. No matter what opportunities they had, no matter what privilege I had, they are as sacred as I am as a child of God. It requires giving up a lot of my own comfort and falling down and getting back up again and making mistakes. As activists, we must be willing to stand up in the face of adversity. And I shared this at one point when I was trying to dance around this issue at one point. And I was embarrassed to say it. When the movie Selma came out, history that we all should know, but as a white privileged male in California, I think that maybe it was a good 3 minutes of discussing the civil rights movement in Selma, Alabama, and then we went on to the white history. So I went to watch Selma, and I bawled through the whole movie. One, how could I have not been taught this history? How could I not have been taught it? And then I saw in the movie a number of white ministers, not a lot, but maybe three or four, who were also in the march on that bridge. And at least one of them, I think two, lost their life in that march. And I had to ask myself the question, where I stand today at the higher rung, would I Would I have been one of the white ministerial faces who had been on that bridge? And I had to get really uncomfortable and say, probably not. My safety, I value my safety. So I was good to be an ally, good to be an advocate, but when it came to be an activist, my fear drove the bus. As I prepared for today, I asked myself the same question: would I be one of those ministers? And I'm not going to say boldly, absolutely would, but I know that if any one of these three people was being attacked or asked me to be a part of it, I'm going to get to the place where they don't have to ask me. But at this point, I'm going to own where I'm at. If they ask me, I need you on my side, I need you to be my front line, I would be there with an emphatic yes. That's growth. It's not that I was bad or wrong at some point, but it means we're growing together. And we have grown together in the dialogues that we have had. I remember a conversation that this man had when we were having this dialogue. He doesn't dance around things like I do. I have such respect for Jim Sanford and his beloved wife, Barbara. And in the neighborhood, they live here in Georgia. To this day, there are still people that drive by as he's mowing his lawn and say things that make me want to vomit to him. I will put myself on his front lawn, and I will hold any sign that he wants to give me to say, stop, enough is enough. And so, what does activism mean to you? And how has it affected your life? And maybe share a story that indicates activism in your life.
Thank you, Richard. There's so much that goes into my thoughts about everything that you've talked about so far this morning. But just to clarify, I have a singing voice, but I also use my voice to help teach people and train in corporate America and other places. And one of the classes that we do quite a bit is diversity, or DEI, as you may have heard. D stands for diversity, E is equity, I is inclusion. And lately, you may have been hearing some news about those three letters. It's not particularly positive news, because there's a great deal of fear that's behind diversity inclusion programs. When we hear about books being banned and taken out of schools, that's all based on fear. I have been very, very fortunate to work with a group of people that came together after George Floyd was murdered, and I'm calling it murder. And we came together because of an outreach of an ally of mine, a woman that I met many years ago in a training session I was leading up in New York. And she reached out to me. She was the only person who reached out to me after the George Floyd incident to say, she called me and said, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" I was floored because no one else had done that. Even really close friends of mine who are not African American or Black never called me. But this woman called me and she said, "How are you doing?" Those few words meant the world to me. But as we talked, she mentioned that there was a woman in Maine that was looking to do DEI work with horses. After I gulped a few times and said, how do we do that? How would we do that? She said, "Give her a call, or I'll have her call you." So anyway, I contacted and talked with Kim, and the connection was amazing. She's been a horse person since she was a child. Her mother was a horse person since she was a child. And these are women in Maine. What do you think she looks like? Like a lot of people in this audience. Yeah. And she said, "I can't do this without help, but I'm willing to try and to work with it." So I recruited several other people. She was the first white woman on the team. I had another colleague who was also a white female on the team. And then I recruited, and the second colleague is in Connecticut. And then I recruited 4 other individuals to join me here in Atlanta. And they're all African American men. Actually 3, not 4, African American men. And 1 is a cowboy, a Black cowboy in Atlanta. But all this is to say The six of us are together now as a team, and the collective is amazing. We are each other's allies. We stand behind each other if there's ever a problem. We are each other's advocates. We're always conferring and sharing information about this is what this one does, that's what the other one does. We're talking about it like I'm talking to you and advocating for each other. But the activist part, that's what really stands out for me, because I know they'd take a bullet for me if they had to. Every single one of them. We've only been together for 4 years, and that's how strong that connection is for all six of us with each other. And that to me is an incredible statement. I want to also add another A to the equation. That A is accomplice. What's an accomplice, y'all? Somebody who helps you commit a crime, right? Yeah. I would say that some of those people that Richard just talked about were accomplices on that bridge, because that was illegal back in then. That was illegal. What they were doing was illegal. At some levels, what we're trying to do is illegal, or could become illegal, given the way things are moving these days. We've already heard lawsuits against people because they're trying to change. They're not trying, they are changing the laws that are pulling us away from some of the things that have helped us grow. Now, have we arrived? Heck no. We're only an nth of the way on that ladder, whether you do it this way or that way. We're not where we could be. We've got improvements, don't get me wrong, but there's still a lot of issues out here. When I hear you say what you said about somebody doing something on someone's lawn, it's still out there. And we hear it every day. So we have to consider, how can I be an accomplice? Am I comfortable with that? Am I comfortable giving up my freedom potentially because I believe in a system or a situation so deeply as what we're talking about today? I believe we can all be that way. But like Richard said, it's not easy. This work is not easy. I don't have a choice. I can't hide behind anything. My skin color is what it is, and I'm proud of that. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And like he said, it's not about taking anything away from anybody else. I don't want anybody to lose anything to help me move up. I want all of us to move. I want everybody to grow and develop and thrive in this thing we call life. So I have been so blessed to have my team. If I can give a shout out to Equity Quest Consulting. That is my firm. I am the CEO, and my amazing team. So if you have any other questions about that, I'm happy later, but that's my story.
As you're speaking, I'm hearing the voice of Congressman John Lewis. Go make some good trouble. So I've got one real juicy question I would like all three of them to answer, but in my final words, and I want to give them the last word, is we're still climbing a ladder to peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let us commit ourselves to being steadfast allies to those who need our support, tireless advocates for justice and equality, fearless activists for positive change. And what was the last A? I wanted to hear that. One more time.
Accomplice.
I'm an accomplice. I want to be accomplice for radical, radical change. And together, we have the power to have influence. As a collective, make no mistake about it, a small group of people, Republican, Democrat, independents, Christians, Muslims, and atheists, all in the same room, finding our way home, going like this. We have that power, and it is ours to use that power and to not play small here in Cobb County, to not dance around the issues, to not play nice, but to just call it out and say, we're proving something here. I'm calling us to that sense of responsibility. This brings us really to the end of our services on Black History Month, but the work has only just begun. I hope you will carry these ideas into Women's History Month. And then in April, when we do an interfaith, and I have a Muslim up here, and a Christian, and a Baha'i, and a Jew, and an atheist, all somehow sharing together. One of the things that Chica brought out in first service was the subjugation of African religion. It's been told it's not worthy. And so let's put a big old mask of Christianity over it and push it off to the side. So we will be talking about African religions as well, that are foundational pillars of what we teach in this church. This has only been one rung on this journey home. I'm going to ask our panelists to answer, and you can decide who goes first. What do you see as the next step on the journey for this community in particular? And what is one message you feel we need to hear before moving on from Black History Month? Mary, you're the intern. I'm going to have you go first.
I want to quickly say that life to me has not been a crystal stair, that it had rocks and boards and things torn up when it comes to racial issues. I have been called the N-word. So I've had a lot of discrimination, but as you can see, I've also had some good things happen as well. I would like to say, to kind of shift the conversation, our late Minister Eric Butterworth said that there is an upward pull of the universe seeking to raise us or lift us up to our own divine nature. And he also encouraged us to see things from a higher point of view, a higher perspective or a different perspective. So I would like for you to imagine with me that the chaos that we see in the world, the racism, the divides, are the dusk before the dawn. Given all that I've grown through as a Black female in this country, I really want to hold to the vision that this too shall pass. Also, Marianne Williamson, one of my gurus, Course in Miracles, said that when the baby chick is born, it is literally dying to be born. And if the soon-to-be baby chick did not break through the eggshell, the toxic poisons would kill the baby chick. So I am opting for the baby chick coming forth, beautiful and ready to experience whatever it's going to experience. So I see that the toxic poisons that are happening in our society right now is making the way to birth forth a new era of mankind. And if we collectively embrace fully our oneness with God and each other, we will be able to live free of racism, free of separation, free of violence. I really believe this is possible. But what we must do is hold to our vision of that we can do this, hold to our vision, and at the same time, work together to raise our consciousness to reflect this vibration.
Yeah. Sounds like a unity minister in the making. We only have her for a couple or more months. If you haven't met her yet, get to know her. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. That's good to hear because, you know, I've been on this planet for 80 years. And I've seen ups and downs, and sometimes my hope is at the bottom of the barrel. As you see things going on in this country from day to day, you wonder, are we moving forward or are we moving backwards? And I'm glad this lady thinks that we're moving forward, okay? Because I need that sometimes to be able to keep moving forward. Many times I tell my wife, there's no hope. But hopefully, we've got enough people that think there is enough hope to keep things moving forward. One of the things that I think we've got to do is that we've got to confront this racism, discrimination, and prejudice wherever it may lie, whether it's in the schools, in churches, and religious institutions, because there is some of that is going on in a lot of the religious institutions, whether it's in the halls of the legislature. You know, we've got people now banning books, doing away with curriculums, not even trying to understand what our history is, and trying to keep us from it. You know, I grew up in Alabama, okay? The books that we had were books that were handed down from the white schools. So you know what we were getting. We were getting white history. We were not getting black history. If we wanted that, we had to go find it ourselves. And I think that we have to get away from this fear. We have to get away from this fear that we're experiencing, because that is the basis for a lot of the things that are taking place. Whether it's racism, whether it's sexism, ageism, whether it has to do with the LGBT community, fear is the basis for that. So if we can conquer that fear, then I think we'll all be a whole lot better off. The last thing that I would say is that do the right thing. Be woke. And I wear that badge with honor. Wokeism is my religion. Okay? So it's had a bad connotation recently, but I am woke because that way you're aware of all of the things that are going on.
I invite you to be woke as well. In some ways, I feel like we're almost preaching to the choir, because I think you all get a lot of this. But I still encourage all of the things that we've heard so far to get out there and decide. Decide, what is it that you want to do? What do you want to do differently? Starting today. Starting when you walk out of these doors, what are you going to do differently to be an ally, advocate, activist, or even an accomplice if you're so inclined? We welcome you. This journey is hard. It's hard anyway. It's hard for everybody. But it's even more challenging when you're constantly looking over your shoulder and wondering, or even looking at a person in their face and saying, is this a safe person? Does this person have my best interest at heart, or do they hate me just because of the color of my skin? It's a hard journey. I took up the mantle years ago when I was doing diversity training in the 90s, and that was an important topic for me. But it really it hit home many years later after Trayvon Martin's killing in Florida. Trayvon was 17, my son was 12. And I looked at that situation and that scenario and I thought, oh my goodness. That's probably not what I said at the time. But the fear that went through my body because of what that young man experienced, innocent young man, minding his business, walking through a neighborhood, pardon me, walking through a neighborhood and walking while black. And I have to give a shout out to another colleague of mine who wrote a book called Walking While Black. But the other part of that title includes something that's important to what we've been learning today, is that love is the answer. And A.J. Ali wrote a book called Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. And that's what this is about. My legacy is my son. He's 25 now, or he will be in a couple weeks. But he's, this work that I do around diversity, equity, inclusion, fair treatment, healing the wounds of the world that I just sang about earlier. That's what it's about for me. It's the legacy that I want to leave so that his kids maybe, or maybe his grandkids, don't have to have these conversations anymore. We can't rule out our history. Black history is history. It's part of our collective history, not just in the United States, all over the world. And that's something I'm still learning, as I'm looking at different countries and realizing, oh my gosh, they're struggling with the same things we are. And it's just mind-blowing. So I would ask you to decide, what can you do? How can we heal the wounds of the world if we can't heal our own?
So do me a favor, please thank Tommy Berry, Mary Patton, and Jim Sanford for their honest, authentic voice today. Thank you. And as you sit down and we prepare for meditation, just look to your left and your right. There are people on this ladder. May not be the same experience that you've heard today, but they're having an experience as well, and they need you. We like to say if what we've done in this room today stays in this room, it's been maybe entertaining, beneficial to a point. But if what we have done in this room today goes out those doors, it's the most valuable time you could have spent. As we prepare for meditation, I invite you once again to place your hand upon your heart. I'm going to put some lyrics up on the screen here. And let us be the first one to remind, as an ally, an advocate, that I'm on your side. I've got your back. Let's get into some good trouble.